It this time.
I'm alive.
Hello, my fellow patriots. This is Disabled Vets Perspective and an episode of Inside of Veterans Affairs. Today is a somber subject. We're going to be going over the suicide of veterans, the statistics, and the misinformation that goes along with it. Hey, Fred, I need to get you over here as a mod so you don't throw things at me or punch me. Let's see, where's the add mod? There we are. You should have been hit with a wrench by now, and it's probably fair because you keep punching me every time you say, "Hey, Alex." See him? He throws a fist at me. I have to duck. Anyway, I'm giving everybody just a second to come in here. Somebody give me a heads up on my audio and picture quality. I think is pretty good because I'm looking at myself as good as that can be. She definitely cleans that part up for us. Hey, MH, how you doing? All right, Fred. Since you're a mod now, you gotta tell me, am I coming across clearly? Do I sound as good as I can sound? Sounds good. Okay. Well, then I guess we're gonna have some success. All right. I want to see if we can get just a few more people in here, so I don't have to start over again. You can say hi if you like to.
Hello.
There. Okay, now that's enough. All right. Sounds great. Sounds great. Good. Hey, Jarvis. Appreciate you guys being here. Got to adjust myself. I'm trying not to sit on my dog. He's wanting to be in here and close so he can be a part of everything. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Aloha. Oh, must be from Hawaii. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and get started. We're going to be giving a lot of information today about VA suicide, veterans suicide, and the skewed statistics that come along with it, including some fake news issues that like to get thrown on there. I wanted to start out the show by mentioning that under the va.gov, the website for managing your veterans health care, disability records, and education has changed. It's been upgraded. It's going to allow you to do things online, such as refill and track your prescriptions, send a secure message to your healthcare provider, so you're going to have more one-on-one communication with your provider. Schedule and view your appointments. These are some of the things that were available, but it looks like the cover page has changed so that it's a little more point and click friendly. You can even go through the application process of getting started with your VA healthcare. So that's important. In your disability section, you can check on your claims and appeal status. You can view your payment history, upload evidence to support your claim, which is really important. I'll add to that, if you are in a process of getting a claim, if you get a denial, don't ever stop fighting. It took me 17 and a half years of fighting the VA in order to get my 100% disability. I went for many, many years with my back broken 11 places, and life sucked. So never give up, never stop fighting for it, and appeal it every time, and get your appeals in within 30 days after you get your decision. First time decisions, about 99% of the time, are going to be no. Don't get discouraged. Just get your appeal in there. Appeal it within 30 days and keep it going. All right. And it will allow you to file for a disability increase in the same web page and file a claim for compensation. So you can start your process here. The records department, get your veterans ID card, get your VA medical records. That's important. You should always keep your records. Don't trust your records in a computer. It doesn't cost you anything but time. Go to the patient administration in your veterans clinic and get them to run you off copies of your records, keep track of your dates, and that way you don't get a new pile of your whole records at one time. You can do change of address on here. You can request military records. So it's,
Everybody
yeah,
that
DD
listens.
214s. You need a copy of that. I know that there's a period of time where that's becoming difficult because the archives building burned down, but that was a while back. So maybe they've gotten ahead of that now or gotten caught up. Anyway, you can check on things like your GI Bill, so your education, view your payment history for education, change your current education benefits, compare the GI benefits by school, and apply for education. Comparing by school, that's pretty important. There are schools out there that absolutely despise the military and the veterans, and if you plan on going to school, you need to look into those. You need to make sure you're going to a friendly place. You've already been through enough. You don't need to fight for your education. So go to a place that's friendly to veterans and get yourself educated or brilliant, whatever. Anyway, that's what I got on that. That's the VA, www.va.gov, and it is U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, VA Benefits and Healthcare, and you guys need to look it up and get signed up and go further. All right, Miss Belinda, you want to open the, this is a dedication that she's going to read for our fallen heroes.
This is for all the veterans that we've lost. To veterans who have lost their lives by suicide, to veterans who have thoughts of suicide, to veterans who have made an attempt on their lives, to those caring for a veteran, to those left behind after death by suicide, to veterans in recovery, and to all those who work tirelessly to prevent veteran suicide and suicide attempts in our nation. We believe that we can all make a difference.
That's our goal.
And that's what we want to do.
Um,
And I know that's what y'all want to do.
Jarvis, I just made you a moderator. Hope you don't mind. I want to mention again, like I did last week, on this page, and as we grow, we're going to start getting some more interaction with veterans. And the language with veterans can get colorful. And if you're a moderator on my page, I need you to be understanding of that. If somebody comes in here and is just being flat nasty to somebody else that's in the stream, or if they're being particularly rough towards us for unspecified reasons or whatever, then by all means, I want you to do your job and hammer them like the trolls that they are. But have a little slack on some of the veterans that might be contacting us on the chat, and give them a chance to speak. Anyway, I appreciate that from all of my mods. I thank you guys for what you do. And anyway, we'll go on to the next subject. The VA launches a community-focused public health model to prevent veteran suicide. That mouse is not going to work for this computer no matter how many times I move it. It's just weird. A new initiative encourages shared responsibility among stakeholders to promote protective factors and mitigate risk. You just found out something about stakeholders, right?
Stakeholders seem to be outside partners with the VA. They could
Forgive
be
the giant nose. The 100-pound beast is lurking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. They could be another mental health group. They could be an outside state agency or city agency. And their goal with these stakeholders is to help veterans find the care that they need, the mental health care that they need. However, these programs are seriously lacking, and it seems to be more paper and information that we can find than actually being put into play here.
It's like the grocery store, paper or plastic.
Yeah.
But that's probably before some of your time. Hey, Shonda, I appreciate you being here. Anyway, yeah, stakeholders, when she said that first time, or we read it, all I could think about was, doesn't that kind of make it a public trading program? Because your stakeholders are typically your shareholders. And you mentioned the that gentleman that opened up a not for profit. Where was that?
There is a man that is open. It seems that, like we talked about last week, Alex and I, that there's a lot of bloat in the VA, and
Oh, in VA, yeah, right. I'm sorry.
And now with the suicide funding, which is unfortunate, it seems to be going to local organizations that will now run underneath the auspice of VA. And so veteran will go in, Alex or I will go in, and we need to have some type of mental health care. Well, they're just billing the VA directly. So it just seems that it's a new avenue of money to help local psychologists or psychiatrists see veterans, is what we seem to be finding so far.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it takes me to some of my other videos where I talk about government mandated racketeering. And, the most common one is Planned Parenthood, that they get $500 million a year in tax revenue, and then they turn around and give money back to the DNC and to the Democrat candidates. So that's racketeering. That's taking money from somebody against their will and then redistributing that money to their cronies. And this is the same kind of thing. They're using a nonprofit 501c3 organization to do programs through the Veterans Affairs. And most of it has beautiful titles, but it has very little effect. This initiative that I was getting started on is another example of that, where it's just a bunch of pretty words and a bunch of these anagrams, whatever the hell they are, just it's all set up to sound good, look good, and rake in the bucks. It says the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, OMHSP, they always want to throw these digits in there. And last week's episode, I'm sorry,
TBI.
What you said?
TBI, traumatic brain injury, for anyone that doesn't know what that stands for. Alex.
And we'll talk about triage later.
Okay.
All right. And the VA Midwest Healthcare Network, Veterans Integrated Services Network, VISN 23, have been working with academic researchers from the University of Pittsburgh's Program Evaluation and Research Unit, Peru. See all these fancy little things they put in there, PERU. Everything's got to be done up to try to get a visual effect instead of functionality. To spearhead a community-based program as one of many efforts aimed at lowering the rate of veterans suicide. If they want to lower the rate of veteran suicide, they got to make sure when somebody comes in there to the VA looking for help that they don't get turned away after 6.5 hours. Anyway, the aligned with the National Strategy for Preventing Veteran Suicide, the program, which began in early 2019, is designed to increase community involvement within VISN 23 by leveraging the reach and impact of local stakeholders. This is reading like a, I don't know, feel-good novel, but so far it hasn't
said anything that has happened. It
Right.
just says what they would like to incorporate, the things that they would like to do to help veterans, the things that they hope will benefit veterans in crisis.
So it's all pretty and such, but they pay people a lot of money to write these things. Excuse me. We recognize that just as suicide has no single determining cause, no single agency can prevent veteran suicide, said VA Secretary Robert Wilkie. In working with our partners on this pilot program, we are adding new opportunities to provide our veterans with whole health solutions before they reach the point of crisis. Again, this is all what we want to do and what we think it should look like, and it sounds really nice, but I don't see any meat. So far, I'm just chewing on the bone. Charging with carrying out the program's multiple objectives, VISN 23 has deployed 10 education, and outreach specialists who have received formal training from the VA leadership in Peru, PERU, on how to assess community readiness for increased engagement efforts, build local coalitions to facilitate wider and more frequent touch points with veterans. See, touch points. Oh, facilitate wider and more frequent touch points. Where the hell do they want to touch the veteran? I don't think that has anything to do with it. That's, their sex life is none of our business. I mean, they can go touch a duck. I don't care.
Excuse me.
Yeah, indeed. You're so rude.
I know.
I don't like it though. Use community-specific public health data to tailor interventions to population needs. Provide metrics on program effectiveness to inform national implementation strategy. So they're going to send the paperwork so that they can apply for the paperwork, and then when they get the paperwork, they'll have to submit the paperwork to move forward with this program. By the way, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but she's actually here. She showed up at our place, so we're doing this together this week, and next week she's leaving me completely alone and abandoned, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh, it'll be a sad Sunday.
Yeah, it will. She's going to be driving, and I don't want her doing anything on the phone when she's driving, so we will be together again in 2 weeks, but next week I get to do this all by my lonesome, and I know only half of you will show up because, this is what you got to work with instead of that.
Stop it.
Okay. All right. Now, learn more about the VA's suicide prevention resources and programs at the mentalhealth.va.gov suicide prevention. Veterans who are in crisis or having thoughts of suicide and those who know a veteran in crisis can call Veterans Crisis Line for confidential support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. All of these numbers will be at the bottom of all of my videos. Your points of contact and the crisis hotline is always going to be at the top. Please give somebody a chance to answer that phone. Don't make a decision based on somebody hanging up or having to leave a message. I'm working right now on a program. Belinda's husband mentioned a really good way to move forward with it. I've been trying to figure out how to set it up so that veterans who call this crisis hotline can be redirected to veterans in that area. And Randy suggested burner phones, essentially, but not the burner part, but a phone that's directly linked to the mental health facility hotline, and that if that line picks up and goes to message, it would go to one of these cell phones that the veterans who volunteer for this program would have in their possession. That way it doesn't end up on their primary line. And even I'm guilty. I get 100 calls a day on numbers that I don't know. I get the answering service, so I like to use it. So I'm guilty of that too. And that's what has to be, the discipline has to be there to stop that, so that you answer the phone, and you can always hang up on a
With a dedicated phone, you'll know that the reason it's ringing is somebody seeking help.
right. That was brilliant. So these, between Melinda and Randy, last week and this week, the genius level is almost above my pay grade.
Well,
Speak about that, because you just found that they're working on a program of what you talked about, paying off student loans for mental health or
there
something.
is a man in, I've lost the article here. My iPad's not loading. But there has been a lawmaker that's put forward a bill for mental health care for veterans, that part of the bill is to pay the psychiatrist or psychologist student loan for a committed time of working with the VA. And that's something that we talked about last week. And,
That was genius.
of course, we want to think that we had something to do with it, but it takes a while to get these bills to come to fruition, to even be put before someone. So at least they're thinking the right direction.
I don't think she's giving herself enough credit,
Well,
but that's between y'all and me.
I think at least people are looking in the right direction on how to get the quality people that we need, or just someone that isn't so jaded by, I have to, the doctors that I have to work at the VA because I've had so many malpractice suits against me. Nobody will hire me because I'm a high risk doctor. I don't perform well. Instead of getting jaded doctors, we'll get a doctor that's there for a purpose. They're there to get their student loans paid off, but in turn, we're getting
everything they got.
Yeah, they'll give us everything that they have to treat us well. And when we were looking into the suicide rate, we all hear between 20 and 22 suicides a day for veterans. Well, that statistic is very skewed. In that statistic came about with a study that was done from 1979 to 2015. And that was all veterans and active duty members. And they will call in these studies on suicide, active duty veteran and veteran. Well, you can't have either, in our opinion, is you're active duty or you're a veteran. There
Right.
isn't
Active duty veteran is an oxymoron.
Yes.
Mostly moron, slight on the oxy.
So is there a problem with suicide within the veteran community? Absolutely. Is there a problem within the active duty community with suicides? Absolutely. And there should not be one there. These people are around their counterparts and their peers and their supervisors, and there should be much better checks and balances.
Well, there's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that comes with being a soldier. There's the only unit that's stronger than a soldier's people, his peers, is blood, family. So if you can't see signs of your buddy having issues, then you need to be paying a little closer attention.
For active duty people, they had a total of 321 suicides last year. 57 were Marines, 68 sailor, 58 airmen, and 138 soldiers. That, to me, is a heinous number because, like Alex was just saying, there are people there to see the signs. Medical is right there. So I feel that there must be some type of shaming, or they feel that it's shameful. The person's like, I should be, Joe military, but I'm having all this trouble dealing with my deployment, my divorce, my money problems, whatever they might be, to go ask for help. And there needs to be more education within the active duty ranks. But as far as veterans, we're not getting the funding we need.
Somebody
in
is.
2016, because we're also having trouble finding current statistics and studies and programs that were done.
It's really hard to do. There's an element of embarrassment with the VA because they are a government agency. They want to be able to say, yeah, look what we're doing. We're doing a great job. So, of course, just like the lamestream media, if it's good information, then they'll use it. If it's bad information, they'll suppress it. But, it's ridiculous. And I just wanted to say hey to History B and to Tam J. I appreciate you guys being here. Chandra, good to see you too. Anyway, you were saying?
The most recent study that we could find was...
no, you can't find it, right?
Now I can't find it.
We are not
the
professional
budget.
news hosts, so.
The budget for 2016 for suicide prevention and awareness was $15.1 million.
But wait, there's more.
Of that $15.1 million, they spent $1.5 million on a Facebook post with the actor Tom Hanks.
And what did we both say?
We both feel that Gary Sinise would have done it for free.
Yep.
And that could have been money put back towards, they say that they do all these social media advertising for suicide prevention for veterans.
Have you seen one?
I haven't seen one.
I haven't either.
They say that women are the highest group based on our numbers. We're the smallest amount. So, of course, we have the highest number of suicides because we are such a small group of people. I've never received any pamphlet. They talk about notifying women because women are considered a high risk group. I've never received anything in the mail asking me about my mental health. What do I think about suicide? Come to a seminar. I've never received anything.
I've been asking about your mental health for years,
I know,
but that's just not
that's
got
a whole
anything to do with
different-
this.
yeah.
I'm sorry. But
So their budget of $15.1 million, I have not seen, and I look, because I am a veteran, I have not seen any advertisement. I've never seen a billboard, call the VA crisis line, 1-800. It might be because I'm in a smaller market, which is a shame.
you're not that small a market, though,
I know.
considering you're in a pretty big city, and you're right. They don't show up on billboards. You don't see commercials on TV. If there is a Facebook ad, it's usually just a little spot. And if it's about pro-abortion, then it'll be a full page. Support the women's choice. But for suicide, no.
I just haven't seen anything. And we found that the highest suicide rates are, of course, in rural communities where there's even more lack of outreach.
Well, that's a good transition right into this next article that I had out. It says apparently this is the Washington Compost. So, I mean, the numbers seem realistic. So maybe they made a mistake and actually reported real news. It says suicide among military veterans is especially high in the western U.S. and rural areas, according to new government data that shows wide state-by-state disparities and suggests social isolation, gun ownership, and access to health care may be factors. Gun ownership. They're going to throw the gun grab in there somewhere. If you're a veteran, you shouldn't have a gun. That's insane. The veterans have been taught how to use them. And you had a statistic also, if we're getting into statistics, you remember that one about the how many are actually done by guns?
Oh, yeah, guns are the lowest. The first choice of suicide, unfortunately, for a veteran is hanging. The second cause of suicide by veteran is pesticide poisoning, and the third is by firearm.
Okay.
That's the way people sadly like to commit suicide, is either hanging, pesticide, and then their last choice is by a firearm. And that's usually, or the things that I've heard before and Alex has heard, is that they don't want to be marred when their family finds them. They don't want their family to have to then look at them with, a heinous wound.
They don't look at their separation from the family as being detrimental because they've already declared themselves useless and unworthy. So what they don't want to do is they don't want to put themselves in a position where their family sees them dismembered or decapitated by a gunshot wound. So the pills and the poisons and things like that don't tend to mar up the body. So
and we've also found that within suicide figures, they're using a drug overdose.
Yeah.
Instead of calling it an overdose, they're calling it a suicide. So how can we as veterans really understand what's going on if we can't hire a person to do a study?
Exactly. And the thing is, one thing I kind of alluded to when she mentioned this, we were talking earlier, getting ready for the show, and we talked about the veterans that are declared, the deaths are declared suicides, and it's because they come in the house and they see a bottle of medication sitting there on the end table, and then they see a dead veteran, so they say, oh, he overdosed, he committed suicide. But that in itself is designed to protect the big pharmaceutical companies from lawsuit, because if it came out that the interaction of medications caused that overdose accidentally, then there's grounds for a lawsuit. So instead of saying that, yeah, there was a toxicity in the bloodstream based on two interaction medications that didn't collide well, then the family has an opportunity for recourse. As long as you declare it a suicide, there's nothing else. It's case closed and end of story. It's another statistic. So we're going to do an episode in the future about opioids because that's just out of hand. But anyway, one more.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely. You can say two more things.
All right,
that's two.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When I went to the VA. It was, I guess maybe it's because I'm a woman now. After reading all this, you kind of
Really?
don't. I am.
God, we went through this last week.
I
I'm
know
sorry.
we did. It's still that way.
Yeah.
I was asked to go see a mental health professional right across the hallway. The first thing they asked me was if I owned any weapons and have as many, what are those things called? The locks that go on your gun. Asked me if I owned any weapons and how many locks did I need.
Okay.
And that was a mental health person I'd never met before in my life.
As a veteran and as fellow veterans that are here and anybody else, if you go into a facility and you're looking for a little bit of psychological help, if you know in your heart that your guns are never going to be an issue, then when you go in there, the first question they ask you is, do you have any firearms? The absolute answer is no, I don't. It's none of their business, period. The Second Amendment doesn't say you have to disclose the information on which weapons you have and how many or whatever. When I went to my psychological evaluation, the person that was asking me was, do you have any weapons in the house? Of course, I said, no, I don't. But it's because it's another gun grab, and you got to fight that stuff. They're going to look for loopholes and try to take away our weapons. And you can have suicidal thoughts and you can have a house full of weapons, and you can basically not even think about those, because what the statistic you talked about with the guns being sort of a third resort. And I really think there are other things that get in front of that, but they've abbreviated the statistics so that they could definitely get guns in the top. But I don't believe it's in the top three. I think guns are lower than that.
So do I. I just haven't found anything that says what that means.
Yes, I mean, trying to find statistics. What we're doing is we're giving you guys what we were able to find, and it's like pulling teeth. I don't have any left, so we have to start pulling hers. Just getting a hold of this stuff and then trying to get cross-reference, because one thing I don't like to do is take the opinion of one article. I try to find out if there's other agencies, either left-leaning or right-leaning, that mention the same things. So I try to cross-reference stuff so I don't go just babbling like I am now.
Yeah, neither one of us want to put out something that we haven't researched to the best of our abilities. You know, I was really surprised when I read that about the veteran suicide rate, because I've just felt, because of the media, that it was increasing. Well, it's a statistic. It's like saying that the amount of people that have died in this country, you know, is 1 million, but that's a statistic from 1960 to current.
Right.
You know, it's just, I had no parameter. I had no way to think about that number.
The only thing that we got that actually had a number was in an article I'll be coming up to in a minute. It says 20 suicides a day, but that's based on 100,000 people. And it was only 22 states, I think.
Oh, yeah, and not all states reported to this study.
Yeah.
Texas and California, having some of the largest veteran populations, weren't even incorporated into this figure. So there is no honest figure that we can say this many souls are committing suicide within the VA. Right. All I know that we need to do is have an active plan instead of we propose, we want to. We should have an active plan. And part of the plan would be just, one is taking care of each other. Two, having, God, if somebody ever calls you and says they're in crisis, I hope everyone would have the time to say, I have the time to talk to you and do whatever needs to be done. Yep. And we have to take, like we were saying last week, we have to take care of ourselves.
Right.
We're 9 million people strong, and we don't have a union. We don't have a centralized voice.
1 second before we end up losing him over the top. Michael, the Spirit Talker, what is that? Corfield? Just subscribe to our channel. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of the subscribers. You guys are the foundation of this channel, not me. So everybody that's here, I appreciate you. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. What you're saying?
Shonda, I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Uh, even even spitting on someone can be violent. Oh, okay, that's probably got something to do with something somebody said in the chat.
Oh, okay.
While we're talking, they talk amongst themselves.
Okay.
You know, it's more of a family get together over there.
Okay.
We're just in the way, but they listen and talk at the same time. You guys are doing great. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I see now how it goes. Okay. Okay.
All right. So, another paragraph in this article from the Washington Compost. The figures released Friday are the first ever Department of Veterans Affairs data on suicide by state. It shows Montana, Utah, Nevada, and New Mexico had the highest rates of veteran suicide as of 2014. See, 2014. These numbers, even up to date, are based on information that comes from 2000, basically.
4 years
now.
ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And what we're afraid of is that it might be much worse.
right.
I mean, it's going to go one or two ways. It's either not as bad. Let me say
Suppress
that
the
a different
bad.
way. It's always bad when there's even one suicide.
Absolutely.
But it could be that these numbers are much worse. It could be that the numbers are stable. And that's all really irrelevant if they don't get a program that works, boots on the ground kind of program.
Right.
And that's why Alex and I want to encourage all of you to be great battle buddies.
Yep. That's the thing. You always have a battle buddy when you're active. Mine was Steins. I'm not going to use first names because I don't want to dox anybody, but he and I are as close to blood relation as you can possibly be. And we are still battle buddies. We're always looking out for each other, checking on each other, and it should continue long after you get out of the service. Let's see, the veterans in big chunks of those states must drive 70 miles or more to reach a nearest VA medical center. Well, I drive 50 miles, so another 20 doesn't seem that bad. The suicide rates in those 4 states stood at 60 per 100,000 individuals or higher. Or higher. That's how they write things. Far above the national veteran suicide rate of 38.4, but 38.4 out of 100,000. They're real careful not to give you a percentage because percentages you have to admit to things, so they don't want to be admitting to faults. The overall rate in the West was 45.5 per 100,000. All other regions of the country had rates below the national rate. And one thing that made me take a double take, so to speak, is it says the Western states, and we've got homeless epidemic of veterans in those states. The illegal immigrants are getting health care instead of the people in this country that are in the most need of it. So the Western states are failing the veterans, and the veterans are failing because they're killing themselves.
And with smaller communities and less resources, they have enough money to do.
I can't feel my leg. Oh. Go ahead. You're fine.
To do, to at least do advertising. I've been to these rural communities where the VA center is on the side of the doctor's office, and it's one little door, and it just has the little United States of America seal on it, and it says VA office.
Right.
And that's where your primary care is, and your pharmacy, and your service officer is. It's all in one little room. So in these communities, if that's where the highest, well, that's what they have published, what the VA has published, where these highest suicide rates are, then we need to throw money into those appropriate money.
Yeah.
Money that is used appropriately to draw veterans in, make veterans groups, encourage friendship among veterans.
Yep.
I don't think anybody wants to commit suicide. I don't think anybody wants to leave their family.
Yeah, they just feel like they're against that wall, and against that wall, it's real hard to come off of it.
And veterans are a special group of people. we've seen things, we've done things, we've heard things, we've been told not to hear things, not to see things.
Yeah, it's just shut up. It's good training, and keep your head down and do the job.
And you have to be able to let that out because, as some people have experienced, you can't sometimes tell your experiences.
Right. Yeah, that's a real issue, and I think that um, one way around that would be a special division in the mental health department. Get a psychiatrist or psychologist in there that has a security clearance, a high one, because you can have a security clearance and still not be able to know some of the stuff that's been going on in our military.
1 second. 82nd Airborne Fort Bragg. Hold
Yep.
up. Is there a positive in this stream? The positive is that we all want to work together. Everybody wants to save a veteran's life.
Yeah.
And if we don't even know what information we're being given is the right information, how can we move forward? All that we have been able to find is skewed statistics
Right.
and misleading information.
And suppressed information.
And suppressed information. So the positive out of this is we need to band together.
It's bringing awareness.
And bringing awareness. If obviously they're just going to talk about it, they're going to hire an actor to make a Facebook post. So if that's what the VA is going to do, fine. I need to take it upon myself, Alex does, and you do, Fort Bragg, to make sure that the veterans around you are in good mental health.
Right.
And I think this is a more positive thing than negative.
Yeah. Well, this whole episode of Inside Veterans Affairs is a somber subject. It really sucks, and the only way anything is ever going to change is to bring it to the light and expose it. And I'm sure there are still people that don't know these numbers.
And if we all think the VA is handling it,
Oh, no,
then
boy, you got quite a squeeze.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was looking at my purple fingers for a minute, but yeah, it's very stressful. I apologize about it not being a bright subject.
Suicide isn't a bright topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually in my videos I try to use a little quick wit and a little fun because everything's so dark, and the comedy is important to try to get a point across, but also to lighten it up a little bit so it doesn't sting when it goes firing across the bow. This particular subject, I don't have comedy to deal with it. What I have is the ability to bring it to the people, and with Belinda's help, this is our goal. We can't stop what is happening at the VA unless there's enough people that realize it's happening and will stand up and say this is going to stop. So that's our mission. And 82nd, I apologize, but this episode just doesn't get any better than this. It's just bad stuff.
And Raymond Keisner, you're right. All that, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay, 82nd. I remember you also mentioned that your VA facility where you are is exceptional.
Where is that? No, I need to go there.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Where did you say your VA center was? 82nd. Because what we're doing is we're not bashing every VA center. We are bashing the collective of VA, the system. I'm sure there are some hospitals and some clinics that are extraordinary, and God bless you all for being well taken care of. It should be that way across the board, but it's not. Some of these VA centers are absolute nightmares. So let's see. I
Retired
get treated
in South Dakota.
South Dakota. Well, that's outstanding, and I'm very grateful that you're treated well. I wish we could all be. And I know when you are treated well. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying when you're treated well, and then you hear the horror stories outside of your treatment area, it can be difficult to believe. But trust me, some of these places, they're they're really, really bad. So, I mean, it's out there. So we want to try to bring them all to your level. But anyway, you were saying with
I
Bobby?
was going to say, congratulations to you, Bobby. Deplorable Bobby. I need to go to your center.
Yeah, down here at the Pensacola VA, it's lacking. It's not the worst by any means, but it's very difficult to get seen and treatment.
And the more complex your treatment might be. You know, and I'm not saying anything about you, 82nd, or you, Bobby, but
Well, Bobby, now that you mentioned it, I wanted to also bring up a couple of things. Their links will be in the description down below. I highly recommend that you go take a look at Deplorable Bobby. He's got a video on there called the VA Horrors. I'm believing, let's see, I don't want to get it wrong.
whoops.
Let's
Did you just
stop
click us off?
No, I'm still on here.
Do I need to move?
All right. Well, it didn't work. Anyway, I'm going to have the link down below, and Deplorable Bobby has a video about the nightmare that he's gone through dealing with the VA as a EMT. It's really important that you listen to it. It's very emotional. It's a real situation that needs to be looked into, and that's one that I want to try to also do a show on. Also, there's another gentleman that does a video about his trip to the VA clinic, and I'll have that link under the description as well. It's worth checking out, but it gives you some ideas of what's going on in different parts of the country. Let's see. I've got another one of these articles open, and this is under the Military Times, and it says, in Washington, a study done in Washington, I guess, the suicide rate among all veterans decreased slightly, but the rate among young veterans increased dramatically in the latest figures released by the Department of Veterans Affairs on Wednesday. So it's probably based on information from way back. The research, first reported by the Wall Street Journal, comes a day before the House Veterans Affairs Committee is scheduled to question department officials over progress with suicide prevention efforts and to show mixed results from those programs. In 2016, okay, so there's kind of an idea of what date we're looking at with statistics. In 2016, the most recent data available, the suicide rate for veterans was 1.5 times greater than the Americans who never served in the military. About 20 veterans a day across the country take their own lives, and veterans accounted for 14% of all adult suicide deaths in the U.S. in 2016, even though only 8% of the country's population has served in the military. So, more statistics. Oh. You got something you want to talk about a minute? Because, one of the issues with being a veteran with nerve damage is sometimes you got to go. So she's going to keep you entertained. I'll be right back. I got the tabs open if you want to talk about.
Everyone has different experiences at the VA. Sadly, with everyone that I have run across, the majority of their experiences are negative. It doesn't just have to do with claims at all. It has to do with being able to see your primary care doctor. It has to do with getting the tests that you might need, because some of us only have VA as the insurance. We don't have, I call it civilian healthcare insurance. So we are trying to, I don't want to be treated as a subpar member of society. And there are horror stories. There are also really great stories out there. And those don't get talked about enough. The great stories don't get talked about enough. But when it comes to suicide, there's no good way to approach this subject. it seems like we've kind of gone all over the place with the suicide, and then commenting back to you guys over here. Suicide is a touchy subject. Suicide is not a fun subject. But again, like I said earlier, if we all band together and watch out for each other, we're a very large group of people. And we have no spokesman. I don't know who the spokesman for the veteran is. I know who, like last week, who the spokesman is for the Veterans Administration employees. But
Right.
I don't know unless I go to my congressman. I, as one individual, go to my congressman about my one individual problem. I don't know who stands up for me. I don't know who stands up for Alex or my husband or Alex's wife. I don't know.
That's interesting because the spouses are in this as well.
Mhm.
And they say, oh, the wife hasn't served, but they absolutely have, because everything that we do affects them 100%. Apologize
Trump
about having to
2020.
jump up and run, but one thing I had my sciatic nerves pinched for 8 years. I used to have no feeling in my legs from the thighs down. So sometimes when you have to take a leak or something, you don't know about it until you're just about taking a leak. So it's one of those fun experiences, but you learn to get used to stuff like that. And in live streams, you have the ability to jump up and say, all right, now let's go to weather. And for the rest of the headlines, Belinda will take you for the next 5 minutes.
Negative.
Film at 11.
That's an NO.
You're doing great.
Not happening.
I'm telling you.
I have nothing else to say.
Is she doing great?
I have nothing else to say.
She's doing great, right? These
Trump 2020.
Everybody loves you. I mean, what we're doing this is fun, and the subject sucks.
The subject sucks.
But
There's
getting time with you, getting to hang out here, getting to talk to the other veterans out here. This is what I live for. This is a blast for me. Just buddies hanging out. Anyway, so have you pretty much hit your plateau on your subject matter?
I have.
Okay.
It's a very hard subject to research and present y'all with the most accurate information we could find. It would have been easy for Alex to come on here and say, 22 suicides a day and
that's it.
and a bunch of conspiracy kind of theories as to why it's happening. And what we can find is there's not enough funding. There's not enough consistent leadership to get the funding where it needs to go to help the veterans, because no one wants one of our brothers or sisters to commit suicide. When we feel, I've never been in that position, but I would hope if I ever was, that someone would see it and reach out to me to pull me up from those depths. And
I definitely got you covered there.
I know you do.
I wanted to do one more subject. This is a program that I found interesting. It says Cover Me Veterans offers
thank you,
last
Ashley.
emotional
Thank you,
safety
Fred.
to vets considering suicide. It's interesting. There's a little bit of a left slant, but there was one thing that I pulled out of it that I found that it could really work. There's an old saying, you can't protect somebody from themselves, but you can protect somebody, you can make them think about what they're doing a little bit. This is a Dr. Heidi Sigmund, and she wants veterans to think twice before pulling the trigger. This Wisconsin-based psychologist has worked with military men and women for more than a decade, easy for you to say, and has seen the heartbreak that comes with a split-second decision to end a life. We are losing more vets to suicide than to combat, and that's a scary statistic. Sigmund, founder of the nonprofit organization Cover Me Veterans, told Fox News. So it is Fox News, but I think you guys are fully aware that that's been tipping a little more left lately as well. Sigmund says, while taking away firearms is one way to minimize the risk, no, it's not. It's
It is.
ridiculous.
Of course, it is a way to minimize the risk and take away a kitchen knife
Yeah.
and take away a fork and take away a lamp cord and take away an electrical socket.
Stop the
And
trains.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, you could take away the risk. You just throw them in a bubble wrap and put them in a white room. But this is the left part that I'm talking about. You know, it's going to tip to the left. It's just got to, because it's a mainstream media. So, I'll read it again. Sigma says, while taking away firearms is one way to minimize the risk of someone experiencing chronic suicidal thoughts, it isn't always realistic. Many veterans she has worked with have a hard time giving up their guns because they see them as a part of their identity. You've been trained to use that weapon. It is part of your identity. You are one with your rifle. So instead, Sigmund started asking her patients to rubber band a picture of something that is important to them, their families, their pets, their battle buddies, anything that is important to them, to rubber band it to their gun to serve as an instant reminder of the good things in life. The whole taking the guns away thing, I'm totally against, but I like this particular thing because if the gun is the tool of choice to end the life, and you do have something when you pick it up, you have to look at that. You have to take that rubber band off of there, and this is when I do this. This is what I'm going to be
leaving
behind. So I don't agree with the gun taking, but I do like that statement. I think she's right on the mark on that one. And I do realize part of it is like you said, a promotional attaboy for another nonprofit to look good in front of the VA. But I just like the concept. Get something on there that makes them think. All right, now
You have 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. Wow, we are just about on top of our hour.
Or 1 minute.
Okay, well, I want to go over this one real quick. The statistics based on active duty and veterans, risk comparison among veterans serving during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Deployed, the suicide rate was 41% higher. Let's see, let me make sure I'm getting this right, because even though if I go over a minute or two, that's going to be okay, because I want to make sure I get it right. Suicide risk and risk of death among recent veterans. A recent study of veterans serving during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars between 2001 and 2007, again, data from way back, found that both deployed and non-deployed veterans, oxymoron, had a significantly higher suicide risk compared to the U.S. general population, but a lower risk of death from other causes combined. Also, deployed veterans showed a lower risk of suicide compared to the non-deployed veterans. They're not deployed as veterans. Anyway, veterans were followed through the end of 2009. So this again, 2009. We are in 2019. So the risk comparison among veterans serving during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars between 2001 and 2007, deployed, the overall risk of death from all cases was down 25%. The suicide risk was up 41% for deployed. So you had a higher chance of dying from suicide than by being taken out by an enemy that puts it on auto and sprays like a shower and never hits anything. I'm sorry.
7 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
It means that we're at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I don't want to go over an hour because an hour is enough. You guys put up with me for a good amount of time. Blended too. But you're easier to put up with than I am.
No, I'm not.
So,
I get argumentative.
but that's okay too. You know, drama makes good TV.
Well, I'm not.
Okay. So the links for Deplorable Bobby and this other gentleman that I talked about will be in the description section. The phone numbers for the the VA points of contact. Those will be in there. And like I said, next week I'll be up here all by myself. You guys will just have to put up with me for an hour of blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you, Miss Belinda.
Thank you.
You are
Thank you.
awesome.
You are awesome.
Really enjoy you being here with
No,
me.
you're awesome.
No, you are.
No,
No, really,
you are
I
awesome.
insist.
I win because I'm taller.
Are you?
Kind of.
Oh.
If I wear heels.
Oh, well, if I wear my heels, then you're not.
Well, then
taller.
we're in a way.
All right. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys already for next week's show. Remember, it's going to be about the VA bloat, and there's the giant nose of the 100-pound beast. But anyway, y'all have a really good rest of your evening and good week, and I'll put a couple of videos out for you guys to be annoyed with during the week. But until next time, y'all, stay in the fight.